Speaking of top shelf, here's Cam Robinson, the director of content and film scouting for Elite Prospects, back from Texas in the World Under 18s. And we're going to move a little bit up the ladder here and talk about older prospects in a second. Cam, how are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, survived the trip home. Yeah, taking a couple days here. Was out sanding and painting my back deck yesterday. Got the first sunburn of the year.
I was just saying, this good weather allows us to do stuff right now.
Blake is getting so much done around his house, around his sister-in-law's house, till 8:30 at night. He's a worker bee.
It's true. It's true.
Not a guy.
Okay, so we're going to ask about prospects at 15th overall, but the big question here, Cam, and particularly we've discussed it the last couple of weeks on Tom Willander, still unsigned, looks very much like this is setting up for a trade. We know they need a top two center. We know Jim Rutherford has said it's going to be expensive, but it'll be more expensive not to get one. Package time, brother. It's our poll question. Willander and the 15th overall, should they move those assets for a top two center?
Can I just say this first?
Yes, please.
I had a little birdie in my ear say, maybe not all doom and gloom on the Tom Willander front. That, he didn't make the Worlds. Didn't make the Worlds.
Right.
But, obviously Patrick Alvin, Jim Rutherford, they got their plate full right now. They've got to find a coach. I think that's priority number one, obviously. But it wouldn't shock me if when we're talking next week that he's signed.
Really?
So I'm just, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me. Let's just say that, okay? Now, do they trade him with that 15th overall pick? I think if we're putting betting odds onto it, I think that would be like plan A for them and how to solve that 2C hole. Now, is that a good idea? Depends on who the center is, I think, number one.
Yeah.
Plays a big role in that, but that's a hefty package, right? That's a 11th overall pick who is ready to step into pro hockey, maybe into the NHL, and a 15th overall pick. There's going to be good players. There's going to be good players sitting there at 15. Some worthwhile centers, some defensemen. It's like there's going to be teams that would look at that package and be like, yeah, we'll give you a second line center. And now for the Canucks, it's like everything I've said it a million times. All roads lead to keeping Quinn happy. You probably want to know if Quinn's going to be happy for more than 2 years, though, before you start mortgaging your future. Because if you move out Tom Willander, like how long can you rely on Tyler Myers to play top 4 minutes for you, right? Like how long is that going to be able? And he's really rejuvenated his career in the last couple of years. I think he's been excellent in the role he's played for them, but you can't keep asking that for him year over year. And so now you're like, okay, Victor Mancini, you have to be a top 4 guy, and then we have to start just filling in gaps on that bottom pair. And it's just. You're setting yourself up. You've spent that draft capital on an 11th overall pick for a reason. I think it would be short-sighted to move him, but again, would not surprise me if that is the end result.
Let's go to the apple of my eye. Marco Rossi. Do you pay that price for Marco Rossi? And do the Wild want to do that deal because they're trying to be good next year?
Guys, I don't think the Wild like Marco Rossi. I do not think that
I've been of that mind too. Yes.
Right? They clearly do not envision him as like a long-term top 6 center option for them. And they're a good team, right? And they don't have an abundance of top 6 centers. It's not like they have a ton of them floating around, right?
And Willander in this pick don't make them better next year.
No, it doesn't. And to be honest with you, like their defense is so stacked up too, right? And they have Faber and they have Zebuyam and they have assets. They have David Jurasek. They don't need Tom Willander. So I don't think that on paper that makes sense for them. But again, I would not be surprised if Marco Rossi moves. I actually kind of expect him to move this summer.
Why do you say that, Cam? Why do you say you don't think they like Marco Rossi?
They don't give him any time with Matt Boldy or with Kaprizov. They dropped him to the 4th line. Like we heard. I'm not sure if that was out there yet, but 5 by 5.5 was their contract offer to him. Is what I was told. Is what I'd heard when I was in Texas there. For a player with his pedigree and the production that he's put up, we just saw what Matt Coronado got. Some of these players that are not as good as him are getting bigger contracts, and so that just is telling to me is that management there in Minnesota isn't smitten on him. That they're like, yeah, we'll keep him around at a discount, and if you're not happy with that, well, then we'll ship you off and we'll get a win now piece. So it just doesn't seem like throughout the course of the last few years that they are enamored with Marco Rossi.
Okay, let me throw this in your pipe. The conventional wisdom is that Matthew Schaefer, the OHL defenseman, is the best player in this draft and the most likely to go first overall. The New York Islanders have that first overall after an amazing lottery win last night. They do not have a general manager, but they really do need to increase the excitement and entertainment value at UBS Arena. Is there any chance they go Michael Misa first overall, and does that make one of Bo Horvat or Matt Barzal more available than he would have otherwise been had the Islanders kept their indigenous pick?
I think that it's really interesting, and I haven't put this out there yet, is that I think that last night's lottery is like that there's this result. We could see like some real galactic brain action happening now. And so, yes, I do think that there's a world where Schaefer doesn't go one here because of who landed that pick. Now, they don't have anybody in their system like Matt Schaefer. So it makes a ton of sense for them to just take the best player, right? But we've heard, and also that we've heard that maybe, Noah Dobson isn't long for the Isle, right? So if they move out Dobson, it's like now they really have nobody on the blue line to move the puck for him. So it makes even more sense. But I'll give you one more name too, is that James Hagens is from Long Island. He grew up a diehard Islanders fan. Like they have a hard time keeping those homegrown, those homegrown talents that they draft and develop. Is like sometimes they want to leave, that they don't want to stay on the island. Do you take the kid who was, predicted to be the first overall pick all, last year and early on this season, who's slipped down to maybe 3 or 4 now, but they get the kid who...
Do you trade down? Do you try to have your cake and eat it too? Right? Trade down, get Hagens, and get something else.
Yeah.
Or do you take Matty Schaefer and then look to trade to get that 4th overall pick?
Yeah.
Right? Do you go ahead and be like, Utah, do you guys want Noah Dobson? And we'll take 4th, and now we can get best of both worlds. Like, I think that there could be some real fun stuff that happened because of the way the lottery balls landed.
Yeah, can I ask a stupid question?
Sure.
Always.
It's the day that ends in Y.
No. Matthew Schaefer looks like a fine young hockey player. Don't get me wrong. But he's a left shot, not a right shot. Mm-hmm. He's 6'2", 185. He's not 6'4", 6'5", 2 something. Good offensive totals, but not great, in part because we didn't see him play much of this year after the injury. Misa's an exceptional player who had 62 goals in 65 games this year, playing down the middle, 134 points.
Yeah.
Why isn't Misa the number one prospect for you or for others?
So he's right there. It is 1-2 and then a gap. And so if you're going on positional need, there's a special quality with Schaefer. His skating is separating. It's a separating skill. And it will be at the NHL level. And
straight ahead speed. We're not talking Quinn Hughes skating. We're talking straight ahead speed.
No, we're talking 4-way mobility. He is now. He's not Quinn Hughes, and I said in Quinn Hughes' draft year that this is the best skater I've ever watched, and that was him at 17, 18 years old. He was the best skater I'd ever seen with the 4-way mobility. And so Schaefer's not quite that level, but he is not far off of it with his skating ability. His offensive generation, I think, is the point totals don't give it justice. Is that I think that this could be a player that on like a Stanley Cup contender, he will chew up 25 minutes a night, be a franchise defenseman for you, potentially win Norris trophies. He's that level of player. Michael Misa, very, very good player, very talented player. Not everybody's convinced he's going to be a center. Not everybody in NHL circles convinced he's going to be a center, but he is going to be a very, very good player on the wing, a first liner for sure, but maybe not one that changes the complexion of your roster.
Okay. The last time the Vancouver Canucks picked 15th overall was 3 years ago when they popped on Jonathan Lekramaki, and we had the conversation at the time, Cam. I believe you worked that draft for us. He kind of fell to them. He slid, and they were delighted to get him where they got him. The actual authentic, genuine, we couldn't believe he was there. Yeah. Is there a guy who right now is looking like a top 10 prospect on most lists that has a chance to fall to the Canucks at 15? And barring that, who do you like at that selection?
I'm glad you framed it that way, because I was going to come in here with a name of that exact kind of fits that bill. And so There's a lot of good players that could be sitting there at number 15. You know, Brady Martin, I'm a big fan of his. He hits like a truck. He's a center. He scores goals. He's, you know, just was one of the tournament all-stars of the U18s. Very good player. Keyshawn Aitchison, the left shot defenseman. You know, I say Kevin Bieksa 2.0, smash mouth style, scores goals. Lots of good players like that. But there's one that I keep looking at that I think is going to slip on draft day that holds immense potential, and it's Roger McQueen. 6'5", pivot. You know, former like 4th overall pick in the West. He's older. He's an October birth date, so he's 18 all year. Started out like the roof was on fire. Just blew out of the gates, and then the injury. Okay, then he had a back injury. And now everybody's a little scared of what we just saw with Caden Lindstrom, right? Missed a big chunk of his draft eligible season, and now has missed the entirety of this season. Although I will say, full participant in Medicine Hat Tigers practice today as they get ready for their West final against the Spokane Chiefs. So it'd be great to see Lindstrom back in action. But everyone's a little gun shy after that, right? McQueen's got a back injury. He's a big guy, just like Lindstrom. I'm thinking this kid who has arguably top 2 potential on pure upside, that he could be slipping out of that top 10. If that slide starts to happen, I had one team tell me, if he's there where they were picking and they aren't picking super, super high, he's like, we're still not taking him, because we'll be like, everybody knows something that we don't. And we're going to let that slide down past us as well. So there's a world where Roger McQueen, if he doesn't go at 5 or 6, that I think that tumble could go all the way down to 15. And then for Vancouver, a team like that picking in that zone, that's easy money. It's like, yes, it might not work out. He might have a back injury, might derail his entire career. But at 15, you take a chance on potentially getting like a first line center with his size and pedigree and skill set. Another one that could change the complexion of your franchise long term if you can get him at that spot.
I like it. You've got me almost ordering a McQueen Canucks jersey, except then I'm quelled by, what is that, a 5% chance the Canucks keep this pick? Where do you put it?
I think it's higher than that. I think someone has to buy the pick, right? That's a big part of this too, is that nobody loves this draft class. Nobody's enamored with this draft class. Now, if it's on the floor and you're at pick 14 and Roger McQueen's still sitting there, you might get a team that's like, hey, we'll take a swing on this giant right now. A playoff team who has extra parts that they can move, and be like, okay, we'll shift this player and we'll get your 15 and we'll take Tom Willander, and all of a sudden we've got ourselves Willander and Roger McQueen, and all we had to trade was this 28-year-old center that we could part with. So I could see that happening, but at the same time, it's like you do have to have buyers. So I think it's higher than 5%. I will, and maybe that's just my being naive that I do this for a living, and so it's better business for me to talk about prospects. But I do think it's higher than 5, maybe 6.
Did anybody at U18s win their way up this draft into this category? I know I saw lots of ink spilt on Boumediene. I know you were saying in the early 30s maybe for him, but anybody that has
you
played.
Just love his name, Boumediene.
A Boumediene bomb? That's better than Bush bomb, I think. Boom bomb.
Boumediene. So no, nobody played their way up. And, Martin, I think, is probably the one who really helped his stock, that I could see him going top 10. He's always been kind of flirting around that 12, 14 zone anyways. Cole Reshny's had just a tremendous back half of his entire season, and that kept going into the U18s too. But if anything, some of these guys that look like they are supposed to be top 10 picks look nothing like top 10 picks. Anton Trondell, huge disappointment.
Really?
Huge disappointment. Oh, gosh. And he's mostly disappointed me all year. But this was my first time finally getting eyes on him live, because he always tends to be injured for these international tournaments. But no, he didn't even look like a first rounder out there, let alone a top 5 pick. Jackson Smith, the talented 6'3" defenseman, didn't look like a top 10 pick. Radim Murtka, 6'6" defenseman, supposed to be a top 10 pick, did not look like a top 10
And
pick.
this isn't World Juniors. This is U18s. This is when you're supposed to dominate your contemporaries.
Yeah, we got a kid, Phil Beckberg, who's going to go in the 4th round, who led the tournament, right? He did wonders for his stock, and maybe now he'll go 95th instead of 125th.
Right,
right. Yeah, no, not a lot of needle movers. 26th, though, a lot of really great performances from the 2026 kids at this tournament.
Huh, okay.
Let's turn our attention to the Canucks coaching search, Cam, because there is a hot name out there amongst the assistant coaching ranks, and he's from Quesnel, British Columbia. I'm speaking of Washington Capitals assistant Mitch Love, just 40 years old, a former head coach of the Saskatoon Blades in the WHL, a longtime Hockey Canada assistant on the World Hockey Challenge, Hlinka Gretzky, and even World Junior teams. And he's had a couple of bids as a head coach in the AHL as well. You know him a little bit. What do you think?
I mean, like you said, he's a BC boy. You know, he didn't have a lengthy pro career. I love that when he was like 26 or something, he retired and immediately stepped onto the bench in the Western Hockey League. Like he's just like, I'm not even going to take a minute off. I'm getting right into coaching. And you see that with some of these career coaches is that's where they were always supposed to be. And they get identified early on. It's like, you could be a coach. He has success, right? He won a gold with the U17 there. Scotty Walker was the head coach. He was the assistant, right? They won the gold there. He's got a Hlinka gold. He's got a juniors gold. He has all this experience internationally. He's young. You can relate better to these younger players when you're, not 65 years old, 70 years old. I think that he has a long career as a head coach ahead of him. Now, is this the time for him? Is this, he's got Spencer Carberry there in Washington. It's like, it's going to be difficult for him to get another, to steal that opportunity there. So it's, I'm sure he's going to be taking interviews and be be looked at as kind of that next young coach to step in. David Carl's not coming now for a while. Teams that are looking to get away from that recycled job, save a little bit of money, don't have to pay the full freight on some of these guys. I think he'd be a very desirable option. I think he'd be a great option for the Canucks, to be honest with you.
Do you think the Canucks could sell a first-time, lightly known head coach in this market?
I mean, hey, if they can sell Bitcoin on Twitter there yesterday, they can sell anything, right?
Very well done. Good drop.
Well done.
Yes.
Oh, boy. Hey, they're taking L's everywhere. I tweeted it. They need a win. They need a win
They
so
need a
badly in any sense of the word.
If you
right?
buy this Bitcoin, it'll be a win.
Hey, has anybody checked Bitcoin? Maybe they are having a we
The
right
best
now.
part
as
was
we
is that you
speak.
couldn't tell if it was a 100% hack job or not, right? Like for a minute there, it's like, it's probably hacked. But
Probably a hack.
Probably hacked. But no, I think they could. I think they could sell because they could sell anything. They can sell anything in this market. To be, the market is they are desperate for whatever Vancouver, the Canucks will give them. And yes, I think they could sell that. I think it's Manny. I think Malhotra. I think they could sell Malhotra. I think that they could sell Mitch Love. If anything, what might get more pushback is a more experienced coach who's been around the block and has failed, right? Like that might be harder to sell.
How bad would Adam Foote be?
I don't know. I don't think it would be bad. I don't think it would be bad. He was a great player, and I've heard good things about him as a coach. I think that would be a harder sell than Manny. I think Manny gets
It's the leanest resume by a country mile.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So I think that Malhotra and Mitch Love would be an easier sell as first time coaches. Yeah.
What about Woodcroft?
I like Jay Woodcroft. I think that he's a very intelligent guy, very shrewd hockey mind, and he got a raw deal in Edmonton. Like he got a very raw deal. They're getting canned and whatever it was, 3 weeks into the season that year, for no reason other than they just needed to shift something up. And so, talking with kind of the people in the know is that he's going to get another chance and he deserves another chance. And so I would be totally fine with Jay Woodcroft. He's a player's coach. And he's very shrewd thinking and forward thinking with that.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting. They're casting a wide net. Interviews this week. We'll be hearing names attached to this vacancy, and I look forward to discussing it and the 15th overall selection with you as we go forward.
As long as they own it, yes.
Do you think they're going to own it by next Tuesday?
I think next Tuesday they own it.
All right. We'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Sounds good, boys. Take care.